Welcome to lesson 3.3 and 3.4, multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So we're going to start off with multiplying fractions. And so to multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators and then you multiply the denominators. So in other words, you just multiply straight across. You don't need to change anything. So here, for example, we have 1/6 times 2/3, and we want to write our product in simplest form. So all we have to do is multiply straight across. So 1 times 2 is 2, 6 times 3 is 18, 2 goes into both 2 and 18, so we're going to simplify and get 1/9. So pause here and try and then check back with my answers. So we're just multiplying straight across. 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 10 is 20. We can divide those both by 4 and we get 1/5. 5 times 6, 30. 12 times 10, 120. We can take off our zeros and have 3/12, and that breaks down to 1/4 because 3 goes into both 3 and 12. Then 8 times 3 is 24. 4 times 21 is 84. I'm just going to break it down by 2's, so 24 divided by 2 is 12. 84 divided by 2 is 42. We can go by 2 again to get 6/21. And then we can divide by 3 to get 2/7. Now we've got a little more complicated ones. First things first, here we have a positive times a negative. And when you multiply and divide, negatives come in pairs, so our answer has to be negative. And now we're going to multiply straight across again. So 7 times 3 is 21. 9 times 4 is 36. Does anything go into both 21 and 36? Yes, 3 does. So we're going to divide by 3 and get 7/12. And don't forget to bring our negative on over with it. Now here we have a mixed number. So what we need to do is we need to turn that into an improper fraction first. So you take your denominator times your whole number plus your numerator. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and then we're keeping that over 3. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19/7. 19 times 7 gets us 133, and 7 times 3 is 21. We're going to see how many times 21 goes into 33, and that's 6. And 21 times 6 is 126. Then left over we have 7/21. Our vocabulary here now is the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal. So what that is that's two numbers whose product is 1. And the reciprocal, you just take your fraction and flip it. So for example, if our number is 1/4, its reciprocal is 4/1, or just 4. If we have 3/7, its reciprocal is 7/3. If you have the number 6, you can write 6 as a fraction as 6/1, so its reciprocal is 1/6. So here we have 7/16. Its reciprocal is 16/7. If you have a mixed number, you need to turn it into an improper fraction. So 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19/3, and it's a negative number. Your reciprocal is still going to be negative, and then you just flip. So -3/19. So try these two and check back. So -7/9, your reciprocal remains a negative, and it becomes -9/7 for the reciprocal. 2 1/12 Improper fraction, 2 times 12 is 24, plus 1 is 25 over 12. So your reciprocal is 12/25. Now we're going into dividing rational numbers. So when you divide rational numbers, you multiply the reciprocal, or your multiplicative inverse. So what you do is you stay, switch your symbol, and then flip your second fraction. So your first fraction stays, your symbol flips, or switches, and your second fraction flips. So it becomes 4/3. Then, just like multiplying fractions, you just go straight across. So you'll have 4/6, which is the same thing as 2/3. So here's a couple other examples here for you. We have 1/9 divided by 5/12. So you stay, switch your symbol, and flip your fraction. 1 times 12 is 12. 9 times 5 is 45. I believe 3 goes into both of those, so we'll have 4/15. Now here, 3/7 divided by 8. You stay, switch your symbol, and now we need the reciprocal of 8. 8 you can write as 8 over 1, so it's 1/8. Multiply across. 3 times 1 is 3. 7 times 8 is 56. And that's simplest form there for us because 3 does not go into 56. So you try on these two and check back and see what you get. So we're stay, switch, flipping, and we end up with 15 over 21 because 7 times 3 is 21. We can divide each of these by 3, so 15 becomes 5 and 21 becomes 7. So your answer there is 5/7. Over here, right away, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And then we've got 3/4, switching our symbol to multiplication, and flipping, -11, so we can write as -11 over 1, so we'll have 1/11. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 11 is 44. And remember, our answer is negative. So same thing as when we had when we were multiplying mixed numbers, we need to put these into improper fractions. So 4 2/3, 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14 over 3, and that needs to remain a negative. We're staying with division right now because I'm just simplifying. 3/9, or 3 1/9. 9 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19 over 9. Now we're going to turn this into multiplication, so -14 over 3 times 9/19. 14 times 9 gets us 126. 19 times 3 gets us 57. 126 goes into 57 2 times, with 12 remaining out of our 57. And I'm trying to think if we can break that down any way. And we can. 3 goes into both of those. So it'll become 2. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 57 divided by 3 is 19. And there we are in simplest form. So you pause and try these two and then check back per the usual. So positive divided by a negative, our answer is going to be negative. So don't forget that. Turn them into improper fractions. 8 times 6 is 48, plus 3
is 51 over 8 divided by 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17 over 4. We're going to stay, switch, and flip. So get our inverse, 4/17. 51 times 4 gets us 204. 8 times 17 gets us 136. 136 goes into 204 one time with 68 left over. I know that 2 goes into both of those. So we end up with 34 over 68. We can keep breaking that down by 2's. We're going to end up with 17 over 34. And I think that's the smallest we're going to get. And don't forget, up here we said negative, so our answer is negative. A negative divided by a negative here is a positive, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 4 is 34 over 5, divided by 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12 over 5. We're going to stay and multiply by our reciprocal, so we're flipping that one. And we're going to multiply across, so 34 times 5 is 170. 5 times 12 is 60. 60 goes into 170 one time, and there's 50 over 60 left. That breaks down to just 1 5/6. Now we've got some word problems here for you. So this one says the first hill on a certain roller coaster is 255 feet tall. The first drop on another roller coaster is about 11/20 as tall as the first roller coaster. Find the height of the hill on the second roller coaster. So our first is 255. Our second one is 11/20 of that height. So we're going to multiply that by 11/20. Because of means to multiply. 11/20 of the 255 feet. We're going to turn that into over 1, go straight across. 255 times 11 gets us 2,805 over 20. We're going to see how many times 20 goes into 2,805, and that goes in there 140 times. And the leftover amount we have is 5/20, which is the same thing as 140 and 1/4. We're going to label it in the context of this problem, so it's 140 and 1/4 feet tall. This one says Rager feeds her dog Tucker 3 3/4 cups of dog food per day. If she buys a bag of food that contains 165 cups, how many days will the bag of food last? So she has 165 cups that she's breaking down into 3 3/4 cup pieces. We need to turn these into improper fractions, so 165 over 1 divided by 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15/4. We're going to multiply by our reciprocal, so stay, switch, and flip. Now we just multiply straight across. 165 times 4 gets us 660. 15 times 1 is 15. 15 goes into 660. 44 times, even. So in the context of this question, the bag of food is going to last 44 days. Now you try. It says a bowl of food, or not a bowl of food, a bowl of cereal, or a box of cereal, oh my goodness, contains 15 3/5 ounces. If one bowl holds 2 2/5 ounces of cereal, how many bowls of cereal are in one box? So we have the entire box, 15 3/5. We want to figure out how many boxes, or how many bowls we can have. So if one bowl is 2 2/5, we've got to group that entire box into groups of 2 2/5. To figure this out, we need improper fractions. So 15 times 5 is 75, plus 3 is 78 over 5. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12 fifths. I can turn this into a stay, multiply by our reciprocal, so switch and flip. If we have something on the top and something on the bottom, those can cancel out. So those 5's cancel out, and we have 78 over 12. 12 goes into 78 6 times, with 6 left over. So that would be 6 1/2. In the context of this question, that would be 6 1/2 bowls of cereal. Try this one. It says the Willis Tower in Chicago is about 1,450 feet tall. The Empire State Building in New York City is about 4/5 as tall. About how tall is the Empire State Building? So our Empire State Building is 4/5 of 1,450. We're going to take our 1,450 over 1, so we can multiply straight across. Or we can even simplify. 5 goes into 1,450, so things that are opposites, you can break down. So 5 goes into 1,450 290 times, and 5 goes into 5 1 time. So now we just multiply straight across. 4 times 290 gets us 1,160. 1 times 1 is 1. So 1,160 feet tall is how tall the Empire State Building is. Now here we've got algebraic expressions. So we're going to be doing these with variables instead of just numbers. So we need to stay, switch, and flip. Before I multiply, I can go, there's an AB down here and an AB up here, so those cancel each other out. 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 5 goes into 5 1 time. Now I can just multiply straight across. 1 times C is just C, and 3 times 3 is 9. So try these next two and see what you get. So we stay, multiply by our reciprocal, so switch, flip. Our B's cancel out. 5 goes into 5 1 time. 5 goes into 10 2 times. And we're just going to multiply across now. 1A times 7 gets us 7A. 6 times 2 is 12. We can't break that down anymore, so there's our answer. We're going to multiply by our reciprocal over here. So we stay, switch, flip. We've got M's in both places. 4 goes into 4 1 time. 4 goes into 8 2 times. So we end up with 2n over 1, or just straight up 2n.